Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming. My name is Finola Austin. I'm VP of Creative and Client Strategy at Linqia, which is leading independent influencer marketing agency in the US. And I am delighted to be joined today by Kimberly Hairston-Hicks, who's CMO at Gold Bond Sanofi. I would love to kick things off, Kimberly, by making sure the folks in the audience know a little bit about you personally as well as professionally. So if you were a creator, what would you be making content about?
That is such a great question. And I actually have two Instagram accounts, right? And one is Good Beauty and the other is the Pause Journey. So if I was to do it strategically, really like lean in, it would always be grounded in supporting women live their best lives because I'm very passionate about a few things. Well, probably more than a few, but the ones that I really lean in on is my family, my community, and then fashion. So it would have to be grounded in something like that.
Well, I was going to ask about the fashion, right? This outfit is your Beyonce moment. Can you share a little bit about it? Just twirl.
So the funny thing is, on Christmas Day, I get this wonderful Hermes box and from my husband, and I look in, I'm excited, but I knew I had a little bit of an inkling that that was not going to be something from Hermes. And he bought me this outfit, my mom the same outfit, and my daughter. So we are reviving Destiny's Child. And I am, of course, Beyonce.
Absolutely love it. I feel like we've already hit some of the biggest verticals for creators out there, from family, lifestyle, fashion, beauty. On my side, I'm going to make it a little bit more niche and nerdy. I moonlight still as a blogger. I know that's a little old school, but writing about Victorian literature and culture. So real throwback to, the years before I entered the marketing space. But let's turn to your day job. Let's turn to Gold Bond. And I would love to hear you kind of summarize, what is your influencer marketing strategy for the brand? How do you approach all things creators? How would you summarize the approach you're taking in 2026?
So I'm sure you've heard a lot about influencers since we've been here at Brand Innovators. But for me, it starts with relationships. And we don't just try to find the biggest names for scale. We have a guideline, right? And it's more of a personal relationship guideline. We want to make sure first that they love Gold Bond. We have a fantastic brand, and although we are improving our relevance, people that know, right? So they have to love the brand and I can tell you a couple of stories. Second, we want to make sure that it's not a one-off, that they're going to do a post and then you're never going to hear from them. And then when I started on the business, one of the things I was very intentional about, the third thing is it's not about the quantity. I really wanted to make sure we had the quality. So we had like 100 influencers at one point and just driving a lot of content that was not actually connecting and landing. So it's about relationships. Most importantly, that is our strategy.
Absolutely. So you kind of have reduced that number of creators, deepened the partnerships. In terms of the content they're producing, would you say the majority is kind of always on, evergreen? How do you balance that with those tentpole moments that you want to connect with as a brand?
So it has to be a dual strategy. So there are those evergreen moments that we know and that we don't know, that we want to make sure we capture, and those tentpole things that we have to be present in and with using our community. So for Gold Bond, we have key time periods that we need to show up. One in which is, of course, the winter, right? So we did a partnership recently last year with Chelsea Handler on our ski run. And she was such a great partner for us because she loved Gold Bond. It was a natural fit, and we could show up in culture. It wasn't forced. It was very natural because you need to have that hydration during these cold seasons. So it was really important for us to do that.
Absolutely. And talking about influencers, kind of which platforms are key to your strategy? Is it TikTok? Is it Instagram? How would you rank the platforms in terms of importance to the brand right now?
So we do them all, but just recently we started with TikTok. And at first we weren't sure if we had permission to be at TikTok and TikTok really, because we're older legacy brand. You know, my daughter's on TikTok, and when I kind of do the social listening, TikTok is very trendy and what's new. But we really felt like, wait a minute, we are the unsexy brand that we need to bring to the TikTok users and let them know that, you know, while there are options, we feel like we have a place where we're about performance, we're about science, and we're launching brands that need to engage with this younger consumer as well as connecting to our core. And one of my TikTok partners told me that more and more people over 40 are engaged with TikTok, you know, so we're there. People over 40, people over 50 are still there, and they need to hear about Gold Bond.
I mean, they got to check out what their kids are looking at, I guess, is part of it. I think that's fascinating, especially I think from our end, we're seeing that TikTok can be such a product obsessed place. People are going there for product discovery. There are times where we see product in the first few seconds works really well on TikTok when it might not in Reels, where you may need to have that later reveal. So I think that's fascinating. That's been part of your strategy. What about the balance of paid in terms of your influencer strategy? Organic, paid, do you boost? Do you do allow listing or whitelisting? How do you think about that ecosystem?
So when we think about, of course, we boost posts that are big moments, but we also take moments that tend to have moments in culture that are starting to rise, and those are where we decide that maybe that's a time to boost, right? We hadn't planned on it, but because we're starting to get that interaction with our consumers, we're like, wait a minute, this is something. And I can tell you about last fall, there was this moment where during the football season, our powders were going viral. People were talking about them because one of the players actually was using the powders, and you could see the little puff of smoke. And actually it started to really, you know, get a lot of likes, and a lot of people were talking, oh yes, I use my Gold Bond powder. This is what I use. And we decided to put a little boost behind it and really make sure that we were able to spread the Gold Bond word.
Awesome. So I know you had that kind of internal conversation about where do we have the right to play, and came down on the side of TikTok was a space that you needed to be heard in. For other brands in maybe different verticals in the audience beyond the beauty, skincare, wellness space, do you think every brand should be doing influencer marketing, or are there some verticals or brands that should avoid it?
I think all. I don't think there's a brand that wants to connect with community that should not leverage social media, use influence to develop content. Quite frankly, I mean, the kid next door is a content creator, and so you need to dive into that and tap into it. I believe every brand deserves that space.
I'm glad you're the one saying that rather than me, because obviously we're biased, but 100% agree with you. And I think especially in this age of AI being incorporated into search and video content starting to populate search results as well, it's even more important. I didn't tell you, Kimberly, I was going to do this, but one of the things I did earlier was Googled on a private profile and asked Google, you know, who is Gold Bond for? And saw that AI summary at the top. And the very second link it linked to was a YouTube video from a dermatologist. So in that case, affiliate links, but not a sponsored post. But that video content is really what's popping up, what's populating, what's answering folks about brands. And good to see that she was recommending a real range of your products there.
Awesome.
All right. So I want to talk about, you come from a company that, you know, is higher regulation, right? You're under the Sanofi umbrella. How does that impact what you do, and any advice for other high regulation industries that might be in the room, from other over-the-counter wellness brands to alcohol, financial services, gaming, and more?
So we are highly regulated because our parent company is Sanofi, but I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. It sometimes can slow us down. So we use a guideline of MLR, which is medical legal review. And that is just what we have to do. However, my team and I are getting very creative to say, how do we still move with speed, but make sure that we're intentional and not missing something or flagging something that would potentially damage our reputation. So we have great partners like our PR agency, Libby Taylor, and we make sure we partner together. And we're putting this framework in place so that we can look at what our social posts need to have, then go get those things approved so that we can move fast, so we don't have to take every piece of our content and go through the review. If there's a framework, you could just move a little faster, and that's made a difference to us recently.
Absolutely. I think it's about locking in that claims language and maybe knowing when you can and should include a claim and when you shouldn't, if it's just about being part of culture. And I do think you're right that TikTok audiences in particular are yearning for science, are yearning for folks who have the research. We have our client from Danone in the audience, Activia, another example of a brand that has that behind it. So I agree that it can make the content stronger, but you've got to know which content is to entertain and which content is to educate. I'd love to talk about creator content beyond social. We've spoken about social a lot on the organic side and the paid. Are you leveraging your creator content in other places in the marketing ecosystem? And if so, where?
So I think the opportunity is really now to take those real moments, to use them from the lower all the way potentially to the upper funnel. And we haven't done a great job of doing that right at this moment, but I'm so intrigued when brands can take their messages from social and bring them into, even if it's not intentional, or even if it is, to take that social moment and bring it into TV. And it's seamless because your message should be consistent. And I'm looking for opportunities. We haven't landed just yet on something like that, but I think there's still a big opportunity for us to do it. So.
Absolutely. We're seeing with all of our clients that it's so important to negotiate with creators up front to get those long digital usage rights. And then that content is yours to put in so many places. So from product detail pages to retail media landscapes and buys, to CTV was another huge one for us. I think people love to see that social first content paired with a QR code, strong CTA in those CTV environments. And creators love to see themselves on digital billboards or in environments they never thought they would go when they were starting to build a following while filming in their bathroom or bedroom.
Absolutely.
Would love to kind of take a pivot into your role as a CMO. And as we were prepping for this panel, took a look at your LinkedIn, obviously, Kimberly, and saw that you describe yourself as a servant leader. I thought that was such an interesting phrase. Would love to understand what that means to you and how you live out that philosophy internally.
So I don't know how much time we have, but I'll just give you the key. I believe that my role as a CMO and my purpose in life as just a human is to improve people's lives, like make whatever place that I'm in, whatever thing that I do, leave it better than what I found it. Like that is just who I am at my core. And so from a child, I've been that way. When I was 10 years old, my mom told me that during my 10th birthday party, I insisted on giving everybody a gift. And she was like, babe, that's not how it works. They give you gifts. But it was so important. She did it. And that really set the foundation for who I am. And how I position that in my day-to-day work life is that I have 3 key pillars. It's listen. You have 2 ears, 1 mouth for a reason. So listen more, learn, and then you can lead. And the learning piece is allowing yourself to put that mirror up and ask, what do I need to unlearn to be a better leader for my teams? And that's you got to get into that heart moment and really understand that. But I'm proud that I'm learning, listening and learning and leading every day.
I think your 10-year-old self would be proud of you as well, Kimberly. I'd love to ask on that. We have a lot of senior marketers coming through Brand Innovators this week. We also have some folks who are more junior in their career. So if you look to the skill set of the CMO of the future, maybe the generation of Gen Z CMOs who are going to be leading some of the world's biggest brands, what skills do you think they're going to have, and what's going to be different from the generations that's gone before?
I think that's an excellent question. And I can only give like two things that I think, but the world is changing so fast. You may have to ask me this tomorrow and I may have a different answer. But I think it's going to be a balance between curiosity, like exploring that unknown and what we could bring to the world, the possibilities, but also discipline. And the discipline is understanding what's important. So, like, if I think of the world today, like, just to think, like, if we want to cure worldwide hunger, right, that is a possibility. That is something we should all think of. But the discipline is, where do you start? And understanding the spaces that you live in. And for Gold Bond, the next CMO should probably, the next CMO in 5 years, I hope I have my job for at least that long, but the next one should think about, where can we bring wellness into this space? Not just about that, the lotion to make me feel good or look good, but how do I make that well care? And then how do you build on the discipline to make that happen and bring it to life?
Well, you're selling me on the product, and not just because your skin is glowing. But I did want to ask him, really, should C-suite be influencers for their companies, whether that's CMOs or CEOs? I know we've all seen the McDonald's video over the last few weeks. I've heard some shout outs in different panels. Where do you stand on employees and particularly senior leaders showing up in that capacity for the brands they work on?
So I am giggling about that because that was so fun to watch that. The burger wars are now in play, right? And that, like Coke wars and when Pepsi and Coke went at it, and I started my career at Coke, so I have a little bit of bias. But I think that if it is authentic, you should do it. So we have a head of science. Her name is Ramona, and I've been pushing her to lean into this space. Like, Ramona, you talk about science in such a way that even I understand, explain it to me like I'm a third grader, right? And she is so great at talking about the science, and I've been pushing her to do that. I think that's a great thing. I think our CEO has an opportunity, but wherever it is authentic, yes. Where it's not, go do something else. Stay in your lane. But I love the McDonald's. I mean, the best part about that is when Burger King and the other guys said, wait a second. I love it. I think that's the energy we need in marketing, and not to take ourselves so serious. And McDonald's did a clap back too. So don't feel sorry for McDonald's. People are talking about them.
100%. And I think we all like to be entertained on the internet, and it's good to be kind of like something to lighten the mood. I did want to say, I do think it's not just about leaders, though. I think it's also about the grassroots folks in your companies who can take on that creator role. I don't know who's checking out the videos from the Staples baddie, but that's such a great example of in-store talent who become a face of the brand. And I do think companies need to think about the guidance that they're giving to young, more junior employees about how they show up authentically as a fan to the brand. And I also think pairing established creators with folks who are in store, whether that's experts at the fish counter in a local grocery store or tax experts at a financial company during tax season, are so important. Kimberly, we've been here now for a couple of days at Brand Innovators. I know it's still a couple more days of South by to go, but any key takeaways from you so far with the conversation you've been hearing, anything that's been standing out for you, whether related to influencers or more broadly?
So this is my first South by Southwest, and I've had a ball. It's been so wonderful. Brand Innovators never disappoints. They just bring some of the best content, and it's so special to be here. I will tell you, one of the themes that stuck in my head is that people who understand people will win. And to me, even in the world, I think we talked about it in the earlier panel, AI is a tool. We should all use it to help us be better. I'm excited about it. My emails don't take 100 years to kind of think through. I can get to my point quickly. But it's about this human connection. And what I would love, and this is, I didn't mention this to you, but what I would love for us to do before we wrap up, you can ask me another question, but I just want us to stand up for a second. If everybody could just stand up. I think it's important that we don't forget while we're here. And so I don't know if anybody's ever been to a Baptist church, but I want you to turn to your neighbor, turn to your neighbor and take a look at your neighbor, give that eye contact and say, I see you. I see you.
I see you and I hear you. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, everybody. Kimberly, that was wonderful. In the spirit of participation, if anybody has any questions in the crowd, I think we've got a couple of minutes, so would love to answer any questions.
Or if you want a hug, I'm here. I see you. I see you.
Michael, what do you got?
So I have a quick question. Obviously, your brand, some of those key moments that you're talking about, like with the football player, how are you extending that to your retailers and allowing them to take advantage of it too with your brand?
You know, that is very difficult for us because, as you know, culture moves so fast. And by the time I can get a meeting with my retailer, the moment has passed. So one of the things, we're getting ready to kick off our planning, and I'm challenging our team to think about not creating those viral moments, but talking about moments that, if they exist, how do we amplify it in retail? Because that's really that point of purchase is so important for us. Now, we do it on Amazon. You know, that's easier. We were able to take those videos, put them there, and it just drove excitement. But I will say the retailers are a little slower to react, to even get a meeting.
I would just add as well that I think when we think about retail and creators, people's mind often goes to retail-specific creators, the folks who share promotions, for instance. And they can be great if you do have a promotion, a special offer that you want to put out there. But otherwise, I would think look more for lifestyle creators, beauty creators, folks in your space who genuinely look like they shop at the places you want to sell. So you don't want to see a list of creators with millions of followers who've never stepped foot in a Walmart suddenly mentioning Walmart in their content. It's important that you find creators that reflect the shoppers at each retail environment where you want to stand out.
And we do have specific influencers for our Walmarts, our Target. So we do that, but we're not. I thought your question was more about capturing that viral moment. Yeah.
Any more questions? Yes.
Thank you.
You describe yourself as a servant leader. Sanofi, Gold Bond, very much a legacy, long-standing brand. And I think as a leader, that's kind of a newer concept, the people connection, the human connection, one-to-one, more so about connecting with communities is more of a modern day of leadership. So how hard has it been for you to implement that within the walls of Sanofi and Gold Bond?
So I just was able to present this new, or my old for me, but new to Sanofi at our women's conference last week in Boston. And one of the things that I did just say to the leaders within Sanofi, it takes time, but it has to start here. And we need to model the behavior for all of our leaders. And I believe it may take time, but I'm truly thinking next year when I come and see you guys, I'm going to have some great stories because Sanofi actually we are in service, right, already. But leadership is where I believe my mission is to implore that thinking and continue to do it.
Awesome. Is there time for one last question from the audience? All right. Thank you so much again, Kimberly. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And thank you, Brand Innovators.
Great job.